A couple walks quietly along the seaside, but two young men by the roadside start throwing stones at them. However, the couple just keeps walking, seemingly completely unfazed by the young men's provocation. They can't hear the sound of the stones hitting the ground, because they are both deaf and mute. Mao brings his girlfriend Guizi to the beach, and from then on, a new self-taught surfer appears on the summer sands. He looks like a sanitation worker collecting trash, and his surfboard was found in a pile of garbage. The tip of the board is broken, so Mao found a piece of foam and attached it to the surfboard. This is Mao's first time surfing. He imitates others by climbing onto the surfboard, but is quickly knocked into the sea by the waves. While Mao flounders in the water, Guizi quietly sits on the beach. Guizi helps Mao fold his clothes, and when she sees his clumsy yet earnest attempts, she gives a gentle smile. The two young men who threw stones also come to the beach. Seeing Mao's silly appearance, they laugh at him without restraint. But soon, their laughter stops, because Mao, filled with anger, starts walking toward them. Seeing Mao's unhappy face, it looks as if he's about to start a fight. The two young men can only flee in a panic. After driving them away, Mao notices that Guizi is also secretly laughing at him. So on the way back, Mao sulks and walks far ahead. However, halfway back, Mao suddenly turns around and realizes that Guizi has been laughing the whole time. She hasn't stopped at all. The next day after work, Mao once again went to the seaside with Guizi. Mao carefully observed the movements of others, wanting to stand firm on the sea just like them. However, when he got into the water, he still kept falling into the sea again and again. The surfers gathered on the shore to rest, and the clumsy Mao became the butt of their jokes. They said, "Autumn is coming soon, it must be cold for Mao without a wetsuit." Others remarked, "Mao's movements are really off. He must be a total beginner who hasn't even gotten started yet." As time slowly passed, Mao still came to the seaside every day to practice, and Guizi would also come to find Mao each day, quietly helping him tidy up his clothes on the beach. Those surfing experts gradually stopped making fun of Mao and instead praised him for his hard work and quick progress. One day Mao's surfboard broke. The board was already in bad shape and couldn't be repaired anymore, so Mao threw it into the trash bin. After that, Mao and Guizi went to a surf shop. Mao took out money and gave it to Guizi, asking her to go into the shop and see if they could get a discount on a surfboard. After entering the shop, Guizi turned her back to Mao and secretly took out all the money from her own wallet. However, the shop assistant said there was no discount, and even if they combined all their money, they still couldn't afford a surfboard. Feeling helpless, Guizi had no choice but to return the money to Mao. On their way home, they passed by a second-hand shop where there was a very cheap surfboard. Mao wanted to buy it and make do with it for now. But Guizi shook her head at him, so he gave up on the idea. For a while after that, Mao didn't go surfing anymore. He continued his usual job of collecting garbage, and spent his free time studying surfing techniques. Soon, he received his paycheck, and then he and Guizi went back to that shop. He bought a surfboard for 120,000 yen, and the owner gave him a lot of freebies. However, at another shop, he saw the same surfboard selling for only 98,000 yen. It was then that Mao suddenly realized that the freebies the surf shop owner had given him weren't really free after all. They went on a date to a bubble tea shop, but during the date, Mao was completely absorbed in studying all the freebies, leaving Guizi neglected to the side. She started to feel a bit upset with Mao. It all happened when, after surfing, they were waiting to take the bus home in the evening, and the driver said surfboards weren't allowed on the bus. Mao had no choice but to get off the bus with his surfboard, standing there and waving goodbye to Guizi. Guizi was still a bit upset and didn't respond. Mao just silently watched as his figure grew more and more distant. The bus passed many stops, and gradually, more and more seats became empty. However, Guizi kept standing there. She was worried about Mao, who hadn't gotten on the bus. She thought about how far it was to get home, and that Mao, walking back alone, would have a long way to go. She also thought about how dark the road home was, and realized she should have walked back with Mao. The more Guizi thought about it, the more anxious she became. When the bus reached the next stop, she got off. After getting off, Guizi started running back, feeling both guilty and regretful, hurrying in the direction where Mao had gone. By this time, it was already late at night. Mao, walking alone on the street, saw Guizi running toward him. After that, the figures of Mao and Guizi appeared by the seaside once again. They were still walking forward, absorbed in their own little world. The two boys who had been throwing stones and playing soccer were puzzled. Was surfing really that much fun? The two of them decided to give it a try, but surfboards were too expensive and they simply couldn't afford one. In the end, they bought a second-hand surfboard, spending all the money they had. So when they were about to head back, they realized they didn't have any money left for the bus, and so, on the streets late at night, there were now two more teenagers running down the street with a surfboard in hand. The next day, the two soccer boys showed up at the beach, under the watchful eyes of their former teammates. The way they carried the surfboard forward looked just like Mao and Guizi. The soccer boys took turns using the surfboard, sharing their feelings about surfing with each other. At that moment, they finally realized that surfing was actually more fun than soccer. Not long after, Mao had already gone from a beginner to an intermediate surfer. Newcomers would show up on the beach from time to time. One of them hadn't even made it to the water before tripping and falling on the way. The newcomer's girlfriend was grumbling, and then he noticed the cool cat girl picked up 2 bottles of juice, handed one to Mao, and sat down next to him. Guizi, who had gone out to buy drinks, saw this scene when she returned. He noticed that there was a strange woman sitting next to Mao. Guizi walked over and sat down beside Mao, even exchanging a glance with the woman. Guizi was already feeling jealous on the inside, but the clueless Mao still didn't notice anything. That day, the owner of the surf shop came to the beach. Most of the young people there were his customers. The owner chatted with them, then noticed Mao still wearing a short-sleeved shirt. He went back to the shop to get a wetsuit for Mao, and also handed him a registration form for a surfing competition. That day, Mao took Guizi with him on a ferry to participate in the competition, which was being held in Chiba. There were many people participating in the competition. The contestants all sat together in groups, appearing harmonious and dignified, quietly sitting to the side and watching the other participants enter the competition. However, when it was Mao's turn to go on stage, he missed his opportunity because he couldn't hear the announcement. The group of people who often surf at the beach also came to participate, but not a single one of them reminded Mao to go on stage. After the competition ended, Guizi stood by the sea, waiting as Mao completed all the competition events alone in the water. The owner of the surf shop also arrived. The owner asked that group if Mao had come to compete. On the way back, there were no cars, no hats and no lockers, so they had to walk to the pier. They got tired and rested by the roadside. Just then, the owner of the surf shop happened to pass by. He got out of his car, patted Hat, and let the 2 of them ride back with him. After that, Hat still came to the beach every day to practice. The beginner still fell halfway, and the beginner's girlfriend still came looking for Hat. This time, the woman asked Hat to help peel an orange. The clueless Mao agreed, and just like last time, Guizi, who had rushed over, saw this scene again. But this time, Guizi didn't come over. She stood there in a daze for a moment, then turned and stormed off angrily. In the days that followed, Guizi never came to the beach again. The shop owner would sometimes come by to hang out, and he even taught Mao some netting techniques. After teaching him, the owner asked, "Why haven't I seen your girlfriend these past few days?" Mao went to Guizi's house and tried tossing a shoe to get her attention. Guizi saw the shoe outside her window, but she was still angry and didn't want to see Mao. In the end, Mao threw a stone and broke the window of Guizi's house. Guizi finally couldn't hold back and ran out. When he saw Guizi come out, Mao turned to leave just like he used to. Mao thought Guizi would follow him as she always did, but when he looked back, he saw that Guizi was still standing where she was. Confused, he walked up to her. At that moment, tears were streaming down Guizi's face. She returned the ring in her hand to Mao, meaning she wanted to break up with him. Although Mao didn't know why Guizi was angry, the situation left him feeling very down. They sat together by the seaside, both sulking and wearing serious expressions. At that moment, they saw a salaryman fall into the sea, and both of them instinctively showed worried looks. But then they saw someone rescue the salaryman, and they exchanged a knowing smile. Their serious faces relaxed, and they completely forgot about breaking up. After that, with the boss's introduction, Mao gradually became familiar with the people by the seaside. That girl still asked people to peel tangerines for her, but now her target has switched to another young man. Sometimes when the miner comes to surf and is called back to work by his colleagues, Guizi helps Mao bring back his surfboard and clothes. Mao bought a new wetsuit, and he gave his old one to the soccer kid. The 2 soccer kids fought over who would get to wear it first, and the one who put it on first was so excited that he ended up wearing it inside out. Not long after, Chiba Prefecture held another surfing competition. The surf shop owner accompanied them, and Mao and Guizi now had a big group of friends by their side. This time, Mao didn't miss his chance to compete. When the announcer called Mao's name, the owner would come over to remind him. During the competition, Mao went out onto the water with the other contestants in his group, and on the waves, he started to show some real skill. When the competition ended, Mao achieved a pretty good result. After stepping down from the award stage, Mao handed the trophy he had received to Guizi. They took a lot of photos, but most of them were group shots with a bunch of people. Finally, the boss asked Mao and Guizi to stay where they were, then signaled the photographer to take a couple's photo of just the 2 of them. Mao was very shy. He just stood there straight and stiff. He just stood there with a goofy smile, not knowing that he should have put his arm around Guizi's shoulder, or that he should have let the photographer take a few more shots. On the way back, the 2 of them sat quietly on the bench. Guizi held the trophy in her hands, while Mao sat beside her, smiling as he stared at Guizi. Mao handed the trophy to Guizi. He gave the trophy to Guizi, and both the trophy and the photos were displayed in Guizi's home. On a rainy day after that, Mao went to the beach alone with his surfboard. The weather was really bad that day, and Mao was the only person on the entire beach. 2 hours later, Guizi also arrived, but she didn't see Mao there. Guizi thought that Mao hadn't come today. But then she suddenly noticed that Mao's surfboard had already been washed up onto the shore by the waves. At that moment, the sea was both noisy and silent, with surging waves constantly crashing against the beach. It was only after a long time that Guizi finally realized. As time slowly passed, the beach remained unchanged. It was still peaceful, and the two soccer boys would still come to surf. They saved up enough money, and each bought a brand new surfboard. The garbage collector got a new partner, and the repetitive, tedious work continued as always. The woman who asked Mao to wrap oranges for her still looks for people to help her wrap oranges, and her story goes on. In the end, Guizi took the boat alone and left. Chiba's destination was the beach where Mao had once participated in the competition. He stuck a photo onto his surfboard. The photo was a couple's picture he and Mao had taken here back then, carefully pasted on. After attaching the photo, he carried the surfboard toward the sea and pushed it into the water, just like Mao, who was once swallowed by the ocean. At this moment, the surfboard's journey home is also a story about Mao, Guizi, and the sea. As summer quietly came to an end, so too did their story, drawing to a silent close.